Let's get started. I'd like to introduce our topic today, planning an impactful year with Annie and Brendan. Brendan, sorry. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. You guys may now begin.
Okay, can everyone see it in big mode? It's not in like little slide mode. Okay, beautiful. Then I will just move this through. Okay, so we're just gonna kind of introduce ourselves. If you're in our region, you're sick of hearing from us. But so I'm Brendan Wall. I'm the Region 1 RC. That's the Northeast region. I am Midwest born and raised. So despite serving the Northeast, I'm from Illinois originally. I did my bachelor's degree at Illinois State University. I was in mortarboard for 2 years, which is why it says I was in mortarboard in 2018. I graduated in 2020, started a PhD at Iowa State University where I studied organic chemistry. Just recently graduated. A little bit about me. This is a picture of my cat Mochi. He's the love of my life, love him. And also Matt, who's also the love of my life. They share equally. Um, I recently relocated to Indianapolis. I work in pharmaceuticals at Eli Lilly. I'm big into hiking and stuff like that. So last year we went to Utah, hike national parks. I'm an aspiring master knitter and crocheter. Some of my projects here included, these are for our niece and nephew, and a big blanket I made. So that's a little bit about me. And now meet Annie.
Hey friends, my name is Annie. I hope these pictures show you my personality. My face, knowing I get to work with amazing chapters, that's me and this seal. I guess it's my love of life as well. Never seen it again, but he is wonderful. These are all of my friends who honestly, they were all in my mortarboard chapter, and I went to the University of South Alabama and was the chapter president at the Sally Stedman Azalea chapter. I got initiated in 2021, and I was also a 2-year mortarboarder. So I graduated in 2023, and all these girls have stuck with me since then, and they are so wonderful. So happy to have them. As well as you can see my fiance on the right hand side. We love to adventure and also love to hike. And that's a sneak peek of our engagement photos. I think they're adorable. And he was also a mortarboarder, so just mortarboards all around. And I'm also a therapist. I graduated in May, and I'm just so excited to share with y'all about mortarboard today.
Okay. So this you can we're gonna send these slides out at the end. So feel free to take notes. We will give you the link to everything. So there's a lot of text on these slides, and I we hate that, but we do love giving you the info you need. So this is like already in your conference program. Save the dates. These are important. Let's put that in our student calendar for the year, right there with like when to go to class, etc. Okay. So you'll want to keep track of this. If you're on a quarter schedule, your stuff's going to be slightly modified because you typically start later, I think. So just keep that in mind if that applies to you. But we're going to kind of walk through an abridged form of this, which I'll let Annie do, which is our like guide to mortarboard in the calendar.
Yes, I'm not going to touch on every single thing in here because we want to have as much time as possible for y'all to get to talk with each other. I think this conference is best used when different chapters get to mix and mingle and network that way. But this is just a quick little visual to kind of show what we should be doing. I think that list that I just showed you of Save the Date can feel overwhelming. So this just shows one or two things every month that we should be making sure that we're doing. So in July, like we're attending conference, we're maintaining that energy. August, we're having our first meeting, we're doing a retreat, planning for the year. Then we're going to kind of go into those chapter action plans that need to be due, as well as doing national events like the Week of Service and the fall virtual initiations. And then we're kind of going into the end of the year, which we should be keeping up that momentum, keep telling our members about things like the fellowship applications opening, and then start to plan for those selections, which you should start as early as possible. But in December, you should be getting ready to open those in January. And then slowly the rest of our kind of year is going to be about selections, about keeping that momentum and transitioning a great group of officers.
Okay, so right after conference, first things we're doing, it's connection time. You're going to connect with your executive board. You're going to find a preferred communication format. So that's GroupMe, that's text message, that's WhatsApp, whatever people aren't ghosting nowadays. GroupMe back in my time, I sound old. We didn't really like it didn't really work super well because people just put that on mute and then they would never tune in. So if that's still the case, maybe find a different platform to keep your like members and group engaged. Talk about what your chapter goals are for the year. Okay. So we probably have goals set with you as region coordinators if you've had a one-on-one meeting. Like, take those goals, talk about what else your energizes and motivates your chapter. Connect and see what motivates them. And do not plan all the events for the calendar of a year for your chapter on your own or even as an executive board. This should be something that is done as a conversation with your chapter. If you plan all these events on your own, they're not going to necessarily care or like love them potentially and feel like it's something that they generated as a group. So if you can do these, as like a big group, it can make them feel like more included in the planning process. Coordinate with your university calendar and publicize your events early. So this is something Annie really highlighted, which is like some universities allow you to get your events on their like calendar, especially at smaller schools, so that everyone else kind of knows, especially if there's like a newsletter on what's going around campus that week. If that applies to you, do that. At the big schools, I'd say like, you've got, big events that are happening from like SGA on campus or stuff like that. Like, let's not double book ourselves, and then no one comes to the event, right? So make sure, especially with mortarboards who are probably involved in a bunch of other things on campus, you don't want to like do something if it's during like rush week or if it's during like, something where other mortarboards are already going to have like, some kind of involvement that's pulling them in the other direction. Connect with your advisor. So advisors are on this call, hopefully, if any are. Like, establish a communication platform with them. This kind of goes both ways, and like the frequency of check-in and how you'd prefer to connect. So presidents, VPs, like, should connect with their advisor regularly. If the advisor can't attend every meeting, that's like okay, but you should be connecting rather frequently. And it kind of goes both on the advisor too, to like reach out and kind of bridge that. But definitely as the presidents and vice presidents, it's your responsibility to be reaching out to them, because this isn't their like, like full responsibility, of course. And then finally, check in with us, your RCs. We're like your advisors for all things like Mortarboard National related in a way. We can connect you to resources. We can connect you to other people. We can connect you to alumni from your chapter. We can connect you to Trish and all of her wonderful information that she has in multitudes. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling like you don't know what to do, you're not the first chapter to ever experience that. And we are here to work with you, right? Like, that's totally okay. We have seen, we've worked with chapters that have been like, we have 3 active members and we don't know what to do and the chapter is going to go defunct, right? Like, we are able to, work with, if you've got a big problem, don't like hide it and say everything's fine. Like, just talk to us. Annie?
Yes, so for semester and programming, for semester programming, you really want to have a diversity of chapter events. So we want to do some leadership development, some group-based service activities, scholarship promotions, fundraising events. We want to hit those pillars, right? Scholarship, leadership, and service. You hear it ad nauseum. And we really want your chapters to understand, and also your campus community to understand that this is what we're about. I believe that the bake sale is back, and I am on a crusade to tell everyone about it. I think it is a great way to not only have a fundraising event because selling baked goods, I know many chapters that can make a couple $100s off of that. So we're having a fundraising event. It can be a chapter community engagement event because just show up at somebody's apartment, make a bunch of baked goods together. It could also be a time to do a meeting while you're baking, ask some questions, maybe ask about some other programming opportunities, really get to know your chapter and what they want. So try to find things that maybe don't just fit into one box. We're not just doing scholarship opportunities. We're not just doing chapter engagement. We're figuring out how to really get as much bang for our buck out of each of our programming opportunities.
Okay. You finish up your fall semester, you're feeling good. We get to January, you're coming back from winter break, special national conference. Okay, you thought you were done with national conferences, you're not. This is the big one. The other one is much smaller. Um, is We are collegiate student led. You've heard that a million times over now, probably. SNC is a requirement for many of the chapter-based awards at the end of the year for your chapter to be like nominated for, and we want to do that. So this is an opportunity to reconnect with all these people that you've met here at conference today and your RC for mid-year selections planning. It's a nice touch base point. It's also a key part to our governance as an organization. It is virtual. It's around like an hour-ish long. You can make it a chapter event. There's no limitation on who attends and how many. So if you want to attend as a group, it's a great opportunity to do so. But please, 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 please come to SNC. Don't forget about it. We will be bothering you again about it. Don't you worry. We'll be in your inbox about it. But it's a really great time to make sure that everyone feels comfortable going into the selections process. And we will get you there. So if you're feeling like overwhelmed about selections, I know when I attended conference for the first time, I was like, what? And I was in charge of selections at that time. We, it's all going to be gradual. Let's just focus on getting your chapter action plan and your first, semester on the campus, and then we'll move into that. So keep that on your radar. Info to come. Mortarboard week. Annie.
Yes, so for Mortarboard Week, it is a really important thing that's going on. It's Monday, February 9th to Friday, February 15th. This is when Mortarboard was founded, so it is a great time for chapter visibility and really get that campus visibility up and going. That's one of our national goals, so it's one of your collegiate goals as well for most people that I've talked with in my region meetings. Um, it's during Valentine's Week, and so it's a great time to do some sort of fundraising event while also getting your name out on campus. While also, I would think that your applications are due around this time. So it's a great time to do one last push of here's what Mortarboard is. You should join, you should apply, while still doing something fun. There's a bunch of different ideas that you could do for campus visibility. You can do tabling events. We can do partnering with other campus organizations. You can also fundraise, as I was saying, doing Valentine's grams, doing flowers. Blossom Express will not do this. Trish has asked and pleaded, but they won't. But you could do something like that on your campus, and it's just a great opportunity for that.
Okay. So that's Mortarboard week. Then we get into selections, which I already told you about. It's overwhelming. Ask for help. We have a selections guide. It tells you how to do it all. Your region coordinators, Trish Maxwell, fellow collegiate presidents are all resources in this case. Also, your advisor potentially, if they had experience in it, maybe they haven't. So just keep that in mind. You'll need to think about a fall and spring selections. Most chapters typically just do a selection in the spring. If you are really low on membership and maybe increasing chapter size was a goal that your region coordinator talked with you about, considering doing a selection in the fall as well as the spring could be good, and potentially opening your chapters to junior membership. If you talk with Trish and your RC, they'll tell you the best practice for this. It will be a lengthy process. You're going to need to start early on this. The fall will fly by. Take actions in the fall to prepare yourself in the spring. And spring break should be like a hard and fast stop. You want to make sure that you select before your campus goes out on that break, because pretty much after spring break, it's like a race to the finish line for seniors. And whether or not you think so, like you're going to be focused on next steps in your career and all these other things that are happening after. And it's just going to get really, really tight. And it could mean that the transition is maybe not so great, which brings us to officer transitions. So with officer transitions, they are the most critical part of ensuring that your next chapter is successful and stays active. You don't want to put a bunch of work in the fall semester and then kind of like skimp out on officer transitions and then leave it to a chapter that doesn't have any way to kind of keep things moving. And this can lead to chapters becoming like defunct over time. So this is like really, really critical. It's probably the most important thing. Have your advisor present for a transition so the advisor knows who's leading the next chapter, and so also the Mortarboard will know. Also, your advisor is like really key for officer transitions. They are like the local expert on like your chapter's day-to-day like operations, and they'll be a super great resource to help with this. Explain the importance of attending national conference. You've been to one now. Every other year we go in person, virtual. So next year will be an in-person conference. It's really, really critical that we get them to the in-person conference, okay? So help get the next chapter president registered, or at least show them with the information on the website so that they can get ready to go for that, okay? Pass on your social media accounts, files, bank accounts. That's critical. Don't want them not having access to the money next year and you're off, doing something amazing post-graduation and you've completely forgotten about Mortarboard at that point maybe, and you don't remember that you have the bank account. So don't forget to give them that info. And don't forget about us. Okay, so now we've talked to you enough, which is the super boring part. If I can have mostly the collegiate members in the chat do this, because I only have the free version, so only 50 people. I was not expecting 60 participants. Can join up on here, but go to menti.com and enter in this number, and we're going to switch over to like a little bit of an interactive moment here, and we'll have some conversation.
And if you're not one of the 50 people that can join and type in it, you can always type in the chat and we'll be making sure to moderate that and speak those ideas as well.
Okay, beautiful. We're getting responses, so I'm going to take that as a solid, we figured this out. Okay, so what we wanted to kind of brainstorm some ideas that might have been successful for chapters in the past. Um, if you don't know anything about what your chapter did, you can throw in some stuff about what you know organizations you've worked with like previously have been successful at. Kind of group brainstorm on some ideas here, and we'll get this all collected and put in the PowerPoint. Bake sales, flower sales, top prof. Um, who put in top prof? Can you elaborate on what that is for those who might not know? You can just come off mute, it's fine.
Yeah, that was me. At our school, we'd like nominate and then vote on like the top professor of the year. And then we have like a full ceremony awarding that to them.
Awesome.
And I think that's kind of cool because at the University of South Alabama, our chapter also does a top prof, but it's completely different. Every member of our chapter would pick a professor, and then we'd have a giant dinner honoring them and do speeches and things like that. So same name, same purpose, different way to do it.
We did like a banquet type thing where we would recognize, our chapter would vote to recognize someone who represents like a scholarship, leadership, service, and then like all ideals of mortarboard. And then we had like kind of like a mentor dinner where you brought like someone who you felt like exemplified those ideas on campus to like a dinner, and we just like catered it. So if you have the funds to do that, that can be something really, really impactful. It's not always like I think the cheapest option, of course, but if you're a chapter that has the money, that could be really good. Last lecture series, I've heard that's been very successful before. Selling plants, rose sales.
And then
Tip of,
Brendan, we just
yeah, go
had in
ahead.
the chat, yes, what is tip of the cap?
Yeah,
So
what is tip of the cap? Who wants to tell me what that is?
I can explain it.
Oh, you know it? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I do know it. So tip of the cap, we would do it at the University of South Alabama, and what it would look like for us is top prof was for faculty and tip of the cap would be for staff. So we would nominate a staff member and then get a little carnation, which is one of the flowers of mortarboard, and make a little certificate and deliver it to our staff members. Um, to thank them for all that they do. So that one was a little more low lift. And again, it's not as much money to do that. Flowers can be pretty cheap. So it was an easy thing to do for your staff members.
Can someone elaborate on last lecture series? Who's done that?
I can elaborate on that one. We've done that the last few years at our university where we reach out to a professor who is retiring either that year or in the near future, and we ask them to give a lecture on just their overall advice in leadership and life and just general advice that they could give as if it was their last lecture. And that's been super impactful in getting other community members and campus members to come because a lot of other professors and people on campus like to attend. So it kind of reaches outside of just the mortarboard community.
That's awesome. Okay. Hopefully you've all seen me kind of scrolling through these other options. We'll collect these, put them in. All really great ideas. Late cleanup, volunteer days, doing some kind of service project. Those can be really great. We've worked with the food bank in the past. I think in my chapter, that was super, we like packaged food and stuff like that. That could be really fun. What type of fundraisers do you think would be helpful? So this is the next question on that. So this can be things you've seen work well at your other groups you've been a part of, or this one. What you think would work for this?
I always like to say a silly thing about the state of Alabama is that legally we cannot do raffles because of a law about gambling. So it's an important thing to know your state and your laws and just your campus community and what that could look like.
So percentage night at restaurants is a classic one. That's a really good one. Actually generates more money than you probably think. Thrift store at the student union, that's awesome. Selling treats like Krispy Kreme. Yes, that can be an easy way to do like not a baking, but do a bake sale type vibe. Bake sales again, cookie decorating, restaurant brewery nights, car washes. Car washes can work. I've not seen that done recently, but that's like kind of a fun one. Partnerships, community events. This is kind of like a poll, a little pulse read on everyone here. So if you can tell me, how often do you plan to meet as a chapter? And get some live info.
Oh, I love watching this go up and down.
Okay. So it seems like once a month plus like with programming events seems to be like the most often. I think this can be really good. Something that is worth mentioning is just like making sure you don't over meeting your chapter to a point that like if you don't have a lot to talk about maybe at that specific meeting, you don't want to like schedule it and then have it be an email meeting that like could have been an email, and then these people, your chapter members feel like nothing's being accomplished. So do like try to balance like how often you meet with like substance at those meetings. And you can schedule chapter specific things if campus has a leadership development like office that can do leadership development courses for your chapter. That could be a really great way to have like a meeting with something happening. But yeah, so just for those doing like the once a week, that could work really well on your campus. On some campuses, it might be too much and you might like lose students. So just, kind of take a pulse on like what seems to be working.
And just quickly, I always like to say our standard should be at least once a month. If we're not meeting once a month, your chapter buy-in's going to go away. Like they're not going to remember who you are. So making sure you're at least having some form of communication with them regularly is important.
Definitely agree. Is there anything that's a lingering question that hasn't been answered? We have a few minutes left. This is kind of like your Ask Me Anything. They're completely like, anonymous. So I won't make you speak if it's your question, if you could just give me enough context. But is there anything that you're like worried about in your role? Um, Anything you're still confused about mortarboard?
And then in the chat, someone just put that officers meet additionally outside of general chapter meetings. So having an exec board meeting can also make your chapter meeting go by a little bit smoother. So I completely agree with that.
True. All right. Well, I think we're being called back to our room. So if there's no more lingering questions, we'll send out this information to at the end of the session. And we thank you all so much for coming.